J.K. Rowling, Narcissist, Part 4. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We continue the analysis of J.K. Rowling, the famous author, to establish what she is. We now turn to the issue of romantic relationships, intimate relationships. This provides us with particular insight into determining what a person is. Although narcissists appear in various aspects of life, it is the one where it is a romantic ensnarement that particular red flags fly, and a pattern of behaviors, both in terms of relationship as a whole and within those relationships, can provide us with a vast number of indicators to aid the determination. For instance, does the individual have a lot of relationships? Is there a substantial body count? Have they been married and divorced many times? Do they get married quickly? Do they have children quickly? Remember, those factors in themselves are not determinative, but they are indicators. What goes on in that relationship? Is it private and quiet? Is it long-lasting? Are the relationships short? Is there a lot of talk about breakup and getting back together again? Is the relationship played out in the public eye? All of these are factors which can provide us with evidence to make an appropriate determination. For the purposes of understanding more about J.K. Rowling's romantic relationships, we go back to the time around when her mother was becoming ill. A depression settled over Church Cottage, leaving Rowling feeling trapped and miserable. Escape came in the form of a new pupil at Y. Dean Comprehensive, Sean Harris, who quickly became a firm friend. In 1982, he drew up outside the family home in his blue Ford Anglia and whisked her away from the grim stillness of Tuts Hill to the concerts and bars of Bristol. He would park under the Severn Bridge, and together the pair dreamt up better futures for each other. Harris's blue Ford Anglia would become immortalised in Rowling's fictions as Ron Weasley's family car, and he would be described in the dedication in her second book as getaway driver and foul weather friend. Now, there's no suggestion that there was any romantic inclination towards Mr. Harris, or indeed any form of romantic entanglement. Instead, it would appear that there was an enduring friendship, because later Mr. Harris, on her return to the United Kingdom, offered to lend her money when she was essentially penniless, having returned from Portugal. The fact that there is a stable relationship with a male friend, which did not turn intimate, demonstrates an ability to recognize boundaries. Well, then again, perhaps just an individual that didn't appeal in an intimate fashion. Again, we can make that determination as we look at the whole picture. Rowling was appointed head girl at Y. Dean, and her ambition was to study languages at Oxford. Her A-levels in English, French and German, 2 A's and a B, were good enough on paper to secure an Oxbridge place, but she was not accepted. Her teachers were surprised, believing she was the victim of institutional prejudice against comprehensive pupils. The dreaming spires of Oxford were instead replaced by the red brick halls of residence at the University of Exeter. Lecturers remember Rowling as nervous and insecure. Now, pausing there. Nervousness and insecurity are not ordinarily traits associated with narcissists. However, it could be the portrayal of a particular facade to milk sympathy adopted by mid-range narcissists. A fellow student, Yvette Cowles, explained that she was popular and striking. She wore long skirts and used to have this blue denim jacket she liked to wear. Jo was very shapely, and she had this big hair, kind of backcombed and lacquered, and lots of heavy liner. I think she was quite popular with the guys. Despite this popularity, there doesn't appear to have been any notable romantic relationships. undoubtedly at university. There must have been some entanglements, but nothing that was described as enduring, and no reputation emerged from having multiple relationships during this period of time. Simply, she was described as being popular with the guys. In her first year, she signed up for French and classics, but an attitude to academia, best described as minimum work, maximum fun, led to her abandoning classics after she failed to register properly for an exam. This might exhibit a lack of accountability on her part, preferring to indulge in fun activities rather than getting on with studying. But then again, she would hardly be unusual in that respect. Many undergraduates go down that route. Her third year was spent teaching in a school in Paris and sharing a flat with an Italian, a Russian and a Spaniard. She found the Italian disagreeable and would avoid him by spending whole days in her room reading. Is that simply somebody avoiding a toxic individual, or is that a nullification of a threat to control on a repeated basis by withdrawal? During this time, she read Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities, a literary discovery that may have influenced her alleged intention to kill off Harry Potter at the end of Book 7. The death of Charles Darnay, sacrificing his life for a friend, and his moving last words had a major impact on Rowling. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. The next 4 years were to see her work through a variety of temporary jobs, including posts with Amnesty International, again, operating for an organisation such as Amnesty International might be representative of emotional empathy. And also the Manchester Chamber of Commerce, a post so brief there's no record of her actually ever being there. During this time, she began a parallel life as a writer, toiling over 2 adult novels which were never published, and developing a passion for classical music. It was while Rowling drifted aimlessly through these years, the most important moment of her life occurred in summer 1990. Rowling's boyfriend had moved to Manchester, and she found herself returning to London by train after a weekend spent flat hunting with him. Little is known about who this individual was, and there doesn't appear to be anything adverse that came out of the relationship. It was on that journey that an idea took shape. It was the idea for Harry Potter, the creation that has made her both wealthy and famous. So far, there was little to glean, really, in respect of relationships for J.K. Rowling, a university boyfriend, perhaps, some romantic liaisons, but nothing of particular note either way. Following her mother's death, an advert in The Guardian for English teachers in Portugal held out the promise of warmth and a fresh start. Rowling was soon living in the bustling city of Porto in a shared flat. One of her friends was Maria Augier, who was the school's assistant director, where Rowling taught at the Encounter English School, and she became a close friend. She remembers Rowling as a very nervous person, anxious, note that description again, and one who was desperate for love. Is this somebody who is an unaware narcissist that believes that they need to be in love with someone to find that partner as part of the narcissistic drive to cause them to get hold of somebody as a victim? Or is it somebody with a strong love devotee trait who believes in the concept of love and wants to find it? Arantes, Jorge Arantes, was the next person that came into her life with considerable impact. Arantes was a journalism student, 3 years younger than Rowling, and he was drinking with friends in a downstairs bar when, as he recalled, this girl with the most amazing blue eyes walked in. He approached her and began to chat in English, and found they were both fans of Jane Austen. The night ended with an exchange of kisses and phone numbers, and within a couple of days they were sleeping together. Early introduction to a sexual encounter. Was this driven by him, or was it driven by her? If from her, that is a narcissistic indicator. But if Arantes, who had an abundance of Latin machismo, thought he could treat her in a casual manner, he was mistaken. Rowling made this clear when she noticed him chatting to other girls while they were on a date. She approached him and whispered in his ear that it was her or them. Issuing a threat and an ultimatum. Is this someone standing up for herself? Or is this an individual who is issuing a threat as a means to nullify the threat to control posed by him having other interests? Rowling won that contest, but a volatile passion came to exist between the pair. Against the odds, their relationship continued, with Rowling providing money through her work, which Arantes spent while looking for employment he never seemed to find. He's freeloading off her. Is her financial largesse a means of seeking to control him, or is it simply generosity born out of the relationship because of the emotional empathy that she has for him and he's sponging off her? The couple had been together for only a few months when Rowling became pregnant. Again, early pregnancy in a relationship is a narcissistic indicator. Remember, it doesn't mean just because somebody fell pregnant or got somebody pregnant early in the relationship that means that they're a narcissist. It's simply an indicator, because narcissists often engage in getting somebody pregnant or becoming pregnant as a means of trapping the other intimate partner and ensuring that they're able to assert control over them. Rowling fell pregnant just as Arantes embarked on 8 months national service. They agreed that Rowling would move in with Arantes' mother, who lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment, and await his return. Unfortunately, the pregnancy ended in miscarriage. The disappointment apparently brought them closer together, and on the 28th of August 1992, Arantes proposed. Early proposal of marriage, another narcissistic indicator. Friends in Portugal were taken aback when Rowling accepted. Maria Aguirre believed Jorge to be both possessive and jealous, while Steve Cassidy, who ran the school where Rowling worked, viewed him as rough and untrustworthy. His perception was not altered by an incident at the language school prior to their wedding. The couple had been drinking coffee in a cafe across the street when an argument broke out, during which Jorge violently pushed his fiancée. Rowling burst into tears and ran back to the school, but the intensity of Jorge's outburst led one onlooker to inform the police, who arrived to find a large crowd surrounding Arantes as he cried, "Joanne, forgive me, I love you." According to Maria Aguirre, Rowling was soon shouting back, "I love you, Jorge." It appears that Arantes has certainly got issues with regard to jealousy, with regard to control, with regard to perhaps showing ignited fury in the way that is described by the friends of Rowling. And her response to continue to state that she loves this individual despite him being abusive might show a susceptibility on her part to being drawn in by a potential narcissist. The marriage lasted 13 months and 1 day. Later, when Rowling was writing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, she had one character, Professor Trelawney, inform a pupil that the thing he was most fearful of would take place on the 16th of October, which was the date of her wedding in 1992. The marital home remained that of Arantes' mother and was far from happy. 2 months after the ceremony, Rowling found herself pregnant once again. Swift pregnancy, another narcissistic indicator. She continued her job and worryingly discovered she was losing weight due to the stress of arguments with Arantes. There is a theme of behaviour here, and the argumentativeness seems to be coming from him, with a consequential impact upon her. Prior to the birth of her daughter Jessica, named after Jessica Mitford on 27th of July 1993, Rowland's friends were urging her to leave her husband, but she was determined to make her marriage work. Is this determination born out of a need to control her husband, a strong sense of narcissistic pride, not to want to be proven wrong? Or might this exhibit an addiction to somebody who does come across as a narcissist, whereby she can't see what the most appropriate and logical thing were to do, given the fact that he was abusive towards her? Arantes' behaviour made this impossible in terms of making the marriage work. Rowling has never spoken publicly about her marriage except to dismiss her former husband's claims to have helped shape the first Potter novel, with the withering line, he had as much input into Harry Potter as I had in A Tale of Two Cities. Interestingly, Arantes has described his shameful and violent behaviour. He appeared to confirm using force against Rowling when he emerged in 2000 to give a series of interviews demanding access to their daughter Jessica, who was born after the miscarriage. Recounting the night in 1993 he ordered Rowling to leave their shared apartment, he said she refused to go without Jessica. This refusal to leave, is that a nullification of a threat to control, or is it demonstrative of a mother's emotional empathy and love for her daughter? And despite my saying she could come back for her in the morning, there was a violent struggle. I had to drag her out of the house at 5 a.m, and I admit I slapped her very hard in the street. Mr. Arantes described their marriage as intense and passionate. We were always either in heaven or in hell. It certainly seems that this dynamic fits with one of narcissist and victim, and the evidence seems to point to Arantes being more likely to be the narcissist in this exchange rather than J.K. Rowling. Although it is possible, of course, for two narcissists to collide, and one having more covert behaviours and being of a mid-range persuasion, being on the receiving end of a more overt and aggressive narcissist. When Arantes threw Rowling out of their home, Rowling returned the following day with her friend Maria Aguirre and a policeman, and it didn't take long before Jessica was handed over. For 2 weeks, Joanne and Jessica stayed in hiding with friends whom Arantes did not know. Then she boarded a flight to Britain and flew from Arantes and his terrifying temper. Her precious cargo included a cherished daughter and 3 chapters about Harry Potter. Mr. Arantes, who had succumbed to drug addiction, said that he responded to her rejection by finding another girl for the rest of my holiday. Another indicator in relation to him, demonstrating how quickly he has moved on. Rowling also stated, I married on October the 16th, 1992. I left on November the 17th, 1993, so that was the duration of what I considered to be the marriage, she told The Times. I had a baby with this man, but it didn't work, and it was clear to me that it was time to go, and so I went. Rowling has then described her years as a single mother, free from Mr. Arantes, as the proudest achievement of her life. It is interesting to note that she didn't immediately go into another relationship, but rather stayed single. Whilst narcissists can be single, the fact of her remaining so, and it would appear for a number of years, with no evidence presented of her having flings or one-night stands, does tend to suggest an absence of material that would support her being a narcissist. It's more usually the case that the narcissist will need seamless intimate partner primary sources, or will have repeated relationships of a short-term nature, even if they don't reach the status of boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, cohab, etc. Accordingly, it would appear from the evidence presented that Jorge Arantes was more likely to be a narcissist than J.K. Rowling, and that she was the victim of abuse, and that she stayed in that abusive situation for reasons of wanting to make the marriage work. Following escape, where she didn't stay for years, but rather was more likely to move to say, I've had enough, I'm out of here, she then remained single, and something that she determined that she was proud about. It's well known that during those single years, as she wrote about Harry Potter, that she was in financial difficulties. She didn't turn to find a man to carry her, as a narcissist might do, but instead decided to forge her own path. Years later, she entered into a second marriage with Neil Murray, who is a doctor. Very little is known about their relationship, other than there is a 6-year age gap between them. She's 6 years older than him, and apparently they met through a friend of Rowling's sister. They tied the knot at her mansion in secret on Boxing Day back in 2001. Only 15 close friends and relatives, including Rowling's sister Diane, Rowling's daughter Jessica from her first marriage, Murray's sister Lorna, were invited to the ultra-private ceremony. This lack of showiness on her part, despite being a wealthy woman, tends to militate against evidence of grandiosity and showcasing. She had originally planned to wed while on holiday in the Galapagos Islands, but scrapped the idea after the press found out about the impending nuptials. She has 2 children with Murray. They had their first kid together, David Gordon Rowling Murray, in 2003, and their second kid, Mackenzie Jean Rowling Murray. While they keep their relationship private, Joanne will occasionally share tweets about him, including a recent revelation about Neil's voting during the Eurovision Song Contest. Posting on X, she wrote, "My husband just told me he voted for Poland while I was making tea. A reminder that you never really know another human being." In another post, she revealed that he had made her a mug that read, "It's whatev, do your thing, Roro," adding, "Neil put this in my stocking for those days when I look up from the laptop in search of inspiration." She later revealed that he doesn't actually call her that, joking that she wouldn't reveal her nickname. "I can see no downside whatsoever to revealing that information over X. None," she said, rather obviously sarcastically. She also opened up about her relationship with Neil during the Tracks of My Years segment on Ken Bruce's Radio 2 show back in 2020. Speaking about Ain't No Sunshine by Bill Withers, she explained, "I think of all the love songs written, this might be my favourite. It's such a beautiful, simple sentiment. But I have an additional reason for choosing it, which is that it took lockdown for my husband to say to me. I was playing it in the kitchen while cooking something. He walked in. He said, 'This always makes me think of you when you're down in London.' And that was a very moving marital moment. So now it has an extra layer of meaning for me." The 2 of them have been married for 23, 24 years, and they maintain a privacy about that relationship. There are no tabloid tales of fiery fallings out or infidelity in the relationship, which points to either a very evolved narcissist who is able to maintain control and maintain silence about what the individual gets up to, or that the relationship is a healthy one, founded on emotional empathy, without abuse, without control. This is essentially the relationship history of J.K. Rowling. In essence, only 2 serious relationships, both of which were marriages. There is not a pattern of repeated partners or segueing from one partner to another. It's clearly the case that her first marriage was tempestuous, but the evidence points to that being more likely as a consequence of the behaviour of Jorge Arantes rather than Rowling. After all, no similar pattern has emerged in relation to her marriage with Neil Murray, and were she the instigator in the first marriage, one would expect similar behaviours to appear in the second marriage, and they have not. It would appear that many of the narcissist indicators in the first marriage that I spoke about, having sex early on, getting pregnant quickly, moving in together quickly, were narcissistic indicators applicable to Jorge Arantes and less so in relation to Rowling. The relationship picture is, of course, only one aspect of many facets of the life of J.K. Rowling that we consider. But it's fair to say that after an examination of her romantic relationships, it does tend to suggest that narcissism is less likely. Yet we're not finished, so it may be that she is a particularly skilled narcissist who has woven a particular narrative. We'll find out as we examine more about her life as we next turn to the issues of her children and her work. Join me in the next part to consider those matters.